Mrs. Phillips, thank you for your time.
It's good talking to you.
I just want to confirm you're the National Research Officer from Family Voice Australia, is that correct?
That is correct.
And your organisation was part of the submission to request a refused classification for human centipede 2, is that also correct?
We were one of those making a submission. The Commonwealth Classification Review Board put out a media release some weeks ago inviting interested people to make submissions, and we took up their offer.
Now, I haven't seen the film myself, any version of the film. Have you?
No. In South Australia it has not been shown, and I do not think you need to partake of poison to understand from authoritative sources that it is poison. We were acting on the basis of a report from the British Board of Film Classification, which was quite detailed in its comments on the film, which it decided to refuse classification to in June.
And I noticed you mentioned that on your website. I'm intrigued. Do you not find it interesting, however, that some people may find it strange that you haven't yourself or your organisation seen the film, therefore how can you actually dispute the classification of it?
Well, we don't use that argument in other areas. For example, if you see an egg and you smell it and it smells rotten, do you have to eat it to find out that it's rotten, or do you base it on other evidence? There are all sorts of things that are censored in our community. We're not allowed to drive while drunk. All sorts of things are banned because it's considered by society not to be in the public interest, and this is a similar area.
So the film was originally an an R rating, I believe.
That's right.
What was wrong with the R rating? Because to me, or to many people, that may be a very clear understanding of what the actual content of the film is. Does an R rating not indicate sufficiently that it's only suitable for a particular audience?
Well, as the guidelines make clear, there are some films whose extreme violence, including sexual violence, go beyond what is acceptable in the community. That you've got to draw the line sometimes, and this is one of those films where a line has to be drawn.
It's interesting. I'm 32 years of age. Should I not have a choice whether or not to see this film?
Well, should you not have a choice whether or not to drive on the left-hand side of the road? If you want to drive on the right side of the road, shouldn't you have a choice?
Well, I can't drive.
I mean, it's the same principle.
Well, not necessarily. I can't drive on the left side of the road because that's against the law.
Exactly, and it's against the law to show films which are deemed by the Classification Board or the Classification Review Board, where there's a dispute, that breach the guidelines. So it's the same principle exactly.
However, the first Classification Board didn't refuse classification of the film at all. They gave it an R18 rating, and subsequently it was screened
overturned on appeal, yes. This happens all the time in courts. A lower court may make a judgment and various people may appeal, and a higher court may overturn that judgment. Now, this often happens with films. There are many cases where a film is given a certain rating, say R, by the Classification Board, and the film's distributors may say, hey, we want a lower rating of MA. And often that's upheld by the review board, so it works both ways.
Would you have appealed the classification if they did not ask for submissions?
Well, I understand that's a common practice. In the past, this has been the case. But it's not my job to make the decision. It's in this case, and in many other cases, the review board invites people, if they have a particular interest, to give arguments for or against. And
yes.
Of course, this is what happened. The distributors, Monster Pictures, gave a very detailed argument in favour of retaining the R classification, and we and others gave reasons why it should be refused classification. I think you can't get fairer than that.
However,
ultimately the board made its own decision based on its own viewing of the film. I mean, we gave various arguments, but they viewed the film and they decided what was relevant in the code and the guidelines.
Is the Classification Review Board aware that yourself or the organisation haven't actually viewed the film?
Well, since I'm in South Australia, it wouldn't have been possible for me to view the film. It just wasn't shown here.
So in your submission, is that stated that because you haven't actually seen the film?
Our submission was not based on our views at all, as I've explained. We simply quoted what the British Board of Film Classification said after viewing the film in Britain.
But
and that's our argument. It wasn't based on whether or not we'd seen the film. We were presenting the arguments put forward by the British Board of Film Classification.
But some people may say that our arguments, should be our own. In Australia, it shouldn't be based on international responses, because there may be other countries, for instance, who don't ban the film. So why not take that side of the approach as well?
The other view was certainly put by Monster Pictures, and in the end, it was the members of the review board who had seen the film who decided on the basis of their viewing the film what was relevant. So really, we were just putting the case that had been put by the British Board of Film Classification. The final decision was not made by the British Board of Film Classification, it was made by the Australian Classification Review Board.
Based on the evidence submitted by yourself through the British Board?
They based it on their own viewing of the film. Obviously, they had previously listened to both sides of the case, but ultimately they made their own decision based on what they saw when they viewed the film.
There was a press release placed by Monsters Pictures about an hour ago, which I brought to your attention, which I think you may have since read. Is that correct?
I have indeed, yes. I noticed that I'm rejected because I'm a middle-class woman.
Beg your pardon, sorry?
One of the things they attacked me was because I was a middle-class woman. And I'm interested, if I was upper class or lower class, would that make it okay? There are quite a few ad hominem arguments. They were obviously disappointed with the decision.
One of their arguments is that they have a concern over the level of influence that Family Voice Australia has over what the adult public, and I'm quoting here, of this country can or cannot view in a cinema or in the privacy of their own home.
Well,
are you surprised with your own level of influence?
Very surprised, because ultimately it's whether our arguments are good or bad. It's not because of who we are. And ultimately, as I said, the review board members made their own decision. They had certainly heard the Monster Pictures argument. And we don't win the case every time. I wish we did.
Do you know what percentage of cases you don't win at all, Rosalind?
No, because there are very few cases, as you probably know. The review board doesn't meet very often. It's only when there's extreme examples of films which breach the guidelines that we get involved.
And so your objection to the film, your organisation speaks on behalf of families, is that correct?
Well, yes, because survey after survey conducted by governments and similar bodies have found that the general mainstream community of Australia is very concerned about violence in media, and in particular sexual violence. And I think this is one of the big concerns about the Human Centipede 2 film.
Is there not an option whereby there's a simpler solution where if you find a film may not be to the liking of your organisation or those who or other people, that they could simply put notification out to advise families not to see the film, but other people still can?
But it's not a case of whether you like it or whether you're offended by it. The really basic issue is, does this film have the potential to cause harm? And if you read the British Board of Film Classification comments, that was what they saw to be the main issue. Does this film, which effectively is based on sexual arousal by human torture and would reinforce that in viewers. Is this going to be pro-social, or does it have the potential to cause harm by reinforcing somebody who has this obsession to think that this is legitimised by the film and therefore more likely to act it out on others? This is the point of the film, or the point of our objection, that there is harm.
However,
it is not to do with offence, it's to do with harm.
taking that into consideration, the film, I think for a period of 2 or 3 weeks, was screened, I think in Brisbane, I could be wrong there.
Certainly it was filmed in Brisbane, yes.
Of which I'm unaware of any harm that has been documented.
Well, you wouldn't know, would you? But studies do show that people who commit these crimes, there's a strong link with pornography. And effectively, this is what the British Board of Film Classification said. It's torture porn.
There is a final point in the press release that says that Monsters Pictures intends to resubmit a modified version of the film to the classification board.
Yes, I'm sure they're likely to do that because that's what happened in Britain. And finally, a film with 32 different cuts was approved with an 18 classification there. So it's likely that that would happen here as well.
And if that was the case, that, as we speak at this moment, wouldn't concern you further?
I don't approve of the film, but I'd be very glad to see that the original film remained banned. So if it was necessary to make 32 different cuts to meet the classification guidelines, so be it.
Just in closing, that the banning of the film, do you think could actually have a opposite effect to what you're doing, which is that it creates more awareness of the film and makes people illegally download the film or purchase it overseas from countries that haven't banned it?
That claim is often made. On that basis, you would never ban anything. But the reality is that up till last Monday, the DVD was able to be bought in shops around the nation.
Right.
And when it's there, it's much more likely to fall into the hands of people who have problems. I know that anything that's against the law, you find people who are willing to break it. That's not just with films.
Well, also anything with the law. I guess there's always a percentage of people who would.
But having it against the law does act as a disincentive and does mean that fewer people will access it. I know that Monster Pictures, first of all, they got a delay in the review of 3 weeks so that they'd be able to show it all over the country, except for South Australia, by saying, come and see the film before it's banned. In other words, they were reaping lots of money by promoting the film, probably knowing that it breached the guidelines.
Well,
I mean, otherwise, why would they say, come and see this film before it's banned?
Aren't they saying that because it's based on the fact it was banned in Britain?
No, I think it was based on the fact they knew that the review was coming up at the end of November. Because that's why they said it here in Australia. Come and see it before it's banned.
Just finally, if I may.
And I think that's pretty hypocritical of them now to complain that what they were marketing the film on has in fact happened.
In a sense, horror films over the years have been marketed on, the version that they didn't want you to see. Exorcist had an uncut version that was finally released, and that. So I wouldn't say that there's anything new in the promotion of that.
I think it was particularly pertinent this time because they knew, and so did their market know, that the review was coming up.
Does it disappoint you that there are people who want to see the film who now can't?
Well, as I pointed out, I'm very glad that people can't see this film which promotes sexual arousal by torture.
Yes, but does that... so, for instance, myself, whether or not I was going to see it, I'm not too sure, but I would be disappointed myself that I now can't see this film. Does that change your thinking at all in terms of your request to refuse classification, that there may be a large amount of people who actually say, well, hold on, we should be able to see this film?
Well, I'm sure people who are obsessed with masturbating to torture would be disappointed.
Well, I don't think that's a fair comment, because
I'm not saying everybody would, but that's the reason the film is banned. It's a basis. The reason is harm.
Yes, that's based on
that's
the
why,
British board's decision, correct?
And I believe that would underlie the opinion of the Australian board. That the impact is so high that they consider this film should be refused classification. In fact, that's what they said.
Are you aware if anyone can, or I should say, are you aware of the options that are available to actually dispute the review?
I believe, to all intents and purposes, the Classification Review Board is the final decision.
And in the press release by Monsters Pictures, it says that Monsters Pictures would like to draw attention to the fact that two ultra-conservative Christian groups, one of yours is mentioned there, can have this level of influence over what the adult public of this country can or cannot view.
Well, they're wrong. They're wrong because we didn't decide. It was the Review Board, and they had equal opportunity and, I believe, used expensive lawyers to put their case. We simply wrote what we believed were relevant arguments and emailed them to the board.
Yes. Well, they're more referencing your influence over the decision. Are you surprised?
We didn't influence the decision. It was the facts. I mean, it wasn't our views. It was the British Board of Film Classification. So did they have too great an influence? But ultimately, of course, it was the members of the board who made their own decision after seeing the film themselves.
But in a sense, I wonder, do you have to admit that you must have some influence in the decisions, if I may, because I'm of the impression that your submission that you put didn't contain any new information. It was merely the British board's submission that you submitted. Is that correct?
We used parts of the British board's
Did you add your own
comments to relate to the Australian guidelines. So we related the comments made by the British board, which of course have a different set of guidelines. They were referring to various scenes in the film, and we related their description of the scenes to parts of our guidelines. And it was clear that, according to our guidelines, those scenes should be refused classification.
Yep. Does it concern you that the film can be purchased on the internet and shipped to Australia?
There are ways in which you can get around all sorts of laws, that's true. But I believe that it's a good first step to refuse classification. I mean, there are some people who will break the law no matter what, whatever the law is.
Yes, but
that's no reason not to have a law.
So, will you be making any attempts to prevent the film from being imported if it's purchased overseas?
Well, that's a matter for police to do the best they can to see that the laws in this country are upheld. And if customs find such films, then presumably they would be confiscated.
Well, Rosalind Phillips, I should thank you very much for your time and for taking your afternoon to have a chat with me about that.
Thanks, Red.
I appreciate that. Thank you for your time.
Good.
It's interesting. I'm 32 years of age. Should I not have a choice whether or not to see this film?
Well, should you not have a choice whether or not to drive on the left-hand side of the road? If you want to drive on the right side of the road, shouldn't you have a choice?
Well, I can't drive.
I mean, it's the same principle.
Well, not necessarily. I can't drive on the left side of the road because that's against the law.
Exactly, and it's against the law to show films which are deemed by the Classification Board or the Classification Review Board, where there's a dispute, that breach the guidelines. So it's the same principle exactly.
However, the first Classification Board didn't.
The area.
So the film was originally an R rating, I believe.
That's right.
What was wrong with the R rating? Because to me, or to many people, that may be a very clear understanding of what the actual content of the film is. Does an R rating not indicate sufficiently that it's only suitable for a particular audience?
Well, as the guidelines make clear, there are some films whose extreme violence, including sexual violence, go beyond what is acceptable in the community. That you've got to draw the line sometimes, and this is one of those films where a line has to be drawn.
some people may find it strange that you haven't yourself or your organisation seen the film, therefore how can you actually dispute the classification of it?
Well, we don't use that argument in other areas. For example, if you see an egg and you smell it and it smells rotten, do you have to eat it to find out that it's rotten, or do you base it on other evidence? There are all sorts of things that are censored in our community. We're not allowed to drive while drunk. All sorts of things are banned because it's considered by society not to be in the public interest. And this is a similar...
Now, I haven't seen the film myself, any version of the film. Have you?
No. In South Australia it has not been shown, and I do not think you need to partake of poison to understand from authoritative sources that it is poison. We were acting on the basis of a report from the British Board of Film Classification, which was quite detailed in its comments on the film, which it decided to refuse classification to in June.
And I noticed you mentioned that on your website. I'm intrigued. Do you not find it interesting, however, that Mrs. Phillips, thank you for your time.
It's good talking to you.
I just want to confirm you're the National Research Officer from Family Voice Australia, is that correct?
That is correct.
And your organisation was part of the submission to request a refused classification for human centipede 2, is that also correct?
We were one of those making a submission. The Commonwealth Classification Review Board put out a media release some weeks ago inviting interested people to make submissions, and we took up their offer.